All right, hello and welcome into another edition of 8Sports Nightcap here on WRC Now, on WRC Plus, everywhere that you've been watching the show. Had a great episode last week with the voice of the Hokies, Bill Roth, and now we have another very special guest in studio. It's the head coach of the Richmond Spiders, Chris Mooney. Thanks so much for swinging by, checking out this station with the season so close as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really great to be here. Love the place.
Yeah, we were just talking off camera. 21st season coming up at Richmond. I did some of the math last. I think you're the 10th longest tenured head coach in the country. I mean, you're up there with guys like Izzo and all those other guys. I mean, how fast, or does it feel like you've been there forever? Yeah. Has it flown by? What's it been like?
Well, I would say, sometimes it feels like it's been a little bit while, but a lot of times it feels so close. You have so many changes in college basketball, number one. So you really feel like you're trying to stay ahead or catch up with those things. So the job is so different because of that than it was certainly when I first was hired at Richmond. And even compared to 4 or 5 years ago, it's very significantly different. So, it's been wonderful to be here and live in Richmond, raise our family in Richmond, and we're excited to get going on this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I hate to read your resume in front of you, but for our viewers that maybe aren't that familiar with Richmond basketball, 3 NCAA tournaments, 4 NITs, 3 CBIs, over 350 wins at Richmond. I mean, when you joined the Spiders, you were what, 32, 33 years old?
I think 32, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible to even be in that position at that age. What was that whirlwind like? Because you spent that one season at Air Force as head coach, and then all of a sudden, I mean, for that you were only 30, right? Yeah. So that's wild.
Yeah, it was really interesting because at the time it was very late. So I think Jerry Wainwright took the job at DePaul and either the last day of April or something like that. And Richmond, I grew up in Philadelphia, and Coach Tarrant, I think, wrote me a letter or two, but never really recruited me. There was a great player here named Eugene Burroughs that I grew up playing with, and I had always thought so highly of Richmond. And I thought to myself, wow, I wish I had been at Air Force another year or two so I'd be able to be in the mix for the job. But partly because it was late, and it was May already, which was late then. Again, I don't know what early or late is now. But because of that, there was some interest. I think Coach Beeline style of play was very successful at Richmond for his 5 years here. And I think since we played similarly at the Air Force Academy, I think there was some interest. And Jim Miller, again, at the time, I think he made the hire in 6 or 7 days, which was lightning fast back then. Obviously would be very slow and got him fired today. But yeah, it was a whirlwind, and I'm so glad that it happened. And, couldn't have been happier on that day to come to Richmond and still feel that way.
Was it always coaching kind of in your mind of what you wanted to do? Obviously, you played at Princeton, scored over 1,000 points there, part of that famous Princeton offense back in the day. To be a part of that, was it just basketball coaching was something that enamored you?
Yeah, I think I always did want to be a coach. My older brother was a really good player, and he played at the grade school, the local grade school, and it's a very blue collar part of town. But the coach is passed now, named Neil Brazel, would wear a 3-piece suit. He was a really impressive guy, like a Bill Cowher chin, gray hair. And, he was just 6'4". He had played at Wake Forest. And, I just idolized him. And I would come back from watching my brother play and, put on my best clothes and pretend I was coaching. And I think I always had the bug. And when I went to go to college, I played for Coach Carrill, who's a Hall of Fame coach. And it was just something that I was always really, really drawn to and really interested in. And, Coach Carrill's staff had Bill Carmody, who later coached Princeton and Northwestern, Armand Hill, who was a great player, Joe Scott, who became a head coach at the Air Force Academy. And so, yeah, there was a lot of coaching talk and interest for me, certainly, and I went right into high school coaching after college.
Yeah, and then spent a couple of years at Arcadia. I think it was called Beaver back then.
It was.
What were those a couple of seasons like?
Yeah, so after high school coaching, I coached at Beaver College, and we were actually right in the midst of changing the name of the university. And so it was a pretty interesting time. Beaver College originally started as a women's college, and there are a lot of small Division III schools in the Philadelphia area. And so It was interesting. I got the job there in August, and we only had 6 players. So it was really, really a challenge, and one was a walk-on. And so we really had, it was a really, really huge challenge. And at Division 3, turns out it was great for me because you have to do everything. You have to set a recruiting schedule. I had a different job on campus. We had to sweep the floor and wash the uniforms and really do everything. But it was a great, great experience for me. And I think that team, we lost our first 11 games. When we were in layup lines, we'd have to pause when they met with the captains. The referees met with the captains because we only had 4 guys then out of the 6 on the team. And so, so the next year we had, I think 13 freshmen. And so really a huge challenge, but it gave me the opportunity to do everything as well as have another job, a real job on campus. So it was a great, great experience. Division 3, a big issue at Division 3 is who can retain the most players. You might bring in a class of 10 and you wind up with 2 seniors graduating. And so that foreshadowed, what we have now is who can retain players and keep these guys so that they can go through your program and develop and improve, and hopefully that pays dividends in their career. So I didn't know it then, but that was another great part of the preparation.
So that's in the Philadelphia area,
Yes,
right?
yes.
What is it about Philadelphia and basketball? I feel like it's such a huge part of the culture there, with all the colleges and the support it gets from the high school up to the pro level.
Yeah, basketball is really a big deal. When you're a pretty good player and you're coming up, you play in a league called the Sunny Hill League, and you would start that in 5th or 6th grade, and it was super well run, very organized, and it was players from all over the city. And you could play in that all the way until you were a professional player. It was called the Baker League, and you would play the games at Temple or St. Joe's, sometimes at the Palestra, and it was just not only were you playing basketball against some of these top players, but there were legendary figures in the stands and college coaches in the stands, high school coaches, and you got to know everybody around the city. So it was great. The Big 5 games, when I was growing up, they would have doubleheaders at the Palestra still. So basketball was very much a part of it. The Philadelphia Catholic League, where I played, had great tradition and coaching and great players. And it really was, it meant a lot more than just a basketball season. It meant a whole lot for so many of us. And I think, even my friends now, guys who played high school basketball, guys who didn't, basketball is their favorite and their number one thing. And, certainly they love the Spiders now, but they could tell you, what's going on with Villanova and Temple and UNLV and Colorado State. So, basketball really has the attention of Philadelphia people.
So you kind of came up through the ranks there, spent some time at Beaver, and then, we mentioned you end up at Richmond. It's been 21 seasons now, and you've had so much success there. I mean, 2011, that Sweet 16 run. Was there ever maybe testing the waters of seeing what else was out there, or was it always, I'm set on Richmond only?
Yeah, I think I think a little bit of both. I've loved Richmond. I feel like the way the relationship Jim Miller and I had was so great. And when we started doing really well, and there were opportunities maybe for other jobs, I can remember one specifically. Jim came down and I told him, "Hey, I'm thinking about talking to this school," and he said right away, he said, "Well, you have to go ahead. Everything will be fine if you get back and you don't like it." And it was that way for a couple of times, and then subsequently with the administration that we've had, with the presidents that we've had, there's a real value of basketball at Richmond, but there is also a value of doing things a certain way. And I feel like Coach Terrence era, the guys before that, Coach Beeline, I feel like there's a certain way Richmond sees itself and values how the basketball team and the other sports compete and play. And, I feel the same way about it. And, we want to have the very best team we possibly can, but we also want to do that in a certain way and have guys who are great representatives of the school, but also tremendous, maybe not always tremendous students, but guys who have tremendous effort in school and recognize the value of what we're trying to do with the program, and also the value of being a great student athlete and being able to handle both those things and excel. And so I feel like that's really critical at Richmond, and I hope it remains that way, and hopefully we can kind of continue to push it that way.
Yeah, I mean, you've also seen just so much change. I mean, you think back to when you joined the program in 05, 06. I mean, how different was college hoops then compared to now? Like, even from the travel standpoint, I'm sure is way different, in terms of where you guys stay and how you get to games.
Yeah, for sure. I can't even express how much it's changed, especially the last 4 years.
Really?
There were so many rules and compliance, which every Division I college has a compliance office within the athletic department, and that usually has 3, 4, 5 people. And they were so critical and important to the operation because there were so many rules to follow: start dates, call dates, when you could travel, when you could recruit, what you could feed the guys, how long you go before the game, what was a benefit, an unnecessary or an illegal benefit. And that has all just really gone, you know. And what's interesting is the same people who had such a strong voice and had leadership positions who were enforcing these rules and creating more rules are the same people now who are saying that the rules are not important or they don't exist. It's really kind of interesting that the college sports have continued to be very, very popular and just an incredible thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
But it's done 180 degrees different. And now, the illegal benefits now don't exist because the players are making a lot of money. The travel certainly is better. The investment by all the schools that we play is higher. And so really a lot of positive things. But it's dramatically shifted and different. And, players not being at a place for 4 years and 5 years, I think that's the one we really have to keep our eye on. I think some fans, whether you're a fan of Richmond or VCU or Virginia or Tech, I think that's something that fans really identify with. And if that's not the case, I think we lose a little bit of something there, and players jumping from one year to the next, and even more free agency than professional sports. I think that's the one we have to really be careful of, that there could be a little bit of a downtick in the interest in college sports, because that has been always something that really has resonated with fans. And if you're a fan of a college program, especially, to have seen these guys come in and develop and grow and have struggles and then become, the captains and the leaders and the star players, I think that's something that's been very appealing. And if we lose that, I'm afraid that's something that's important to a lot of people.
Yeah, and we've even seen some coaches, step away. Jay Wright, for example, just up the road at Tony Bennett to decide to step away during that time, saying, this isn't the college basketball that, I love coaching. Especially for you, when you had your health issues a couple of seasons ago, was that something that you reflected on, or do you still kind of have that fire and, this is a new landscape and I want to conquer this landscape as well?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like, for me, what has not changed is the coaching. So every day when we go out to practice, or the guys are in the weight room, or we're meeting as a team, that part has been exciting and fun and challenging. The guys are still young men, a little bit older now, sometimes, but they're still looking for direction. They still want to be part of something great. They still want feedback and criticism, and they still want to improve and put their time in. So that part is great. The coachability has not changed. It's the other stuff, when the spring comes and, not knowing exactly who's going to be on your roster the next year, and raising money and making sure that we're as committed as we possibly can be. Those things are a little bit difficult. Right now, the players essentially are free agents just about every day of the year in reality. And they say when the portal opens and closes, that's a bit of a misnomer. Really the portal's always open, especially for the players to go into the portal. And so, because there's a lack of balance there, that's what makes it a little bit uneasy. And that part is tricky, because when you talk to a 17-year-old senior in high school and you have a plan for him and you want him to be a great player, and you've seen it happen with players that are similar to him over the years, And now that plan might change because we've taken somebody out of the transfer portal that's going to block that player's chances for the first couple of years, or that it's harder for him to compete because there are so many older players because of transferring, and there's, they can still transfer later in their career without sitting out a year or without giving that opportunity, the roster spot, to the younger players. So, it's all where it benefits a lot of players. It also is a little bit of a burden to the same number of players. So I hope that part changes. For me, being at the Quilley Center, our practice facility, the Robins Center, being at Richmond and going through a change and having us try to really work so hard to be good and to compete at an extremely high level, that's really a great motivation for me and our staff and our players. So I still really love it. And I think a big part of that is because I'm at Richmond and it's a place that I've, grown into and love very much. And so that makes it a little bit easier for me, because while everything else has changed, my address hasn't changed, and my, who's important to me and what's important to me hasn't changed. So hopefully that can be the same way, and we can become, the best program of our level in the country by continuing to invest in our student athletes, invest in our program, and still attract really good players.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily want to turn this all into an NIL conversation, but it is so interesting. And another thing that, I've noticed over, with your program, with VCU, with Virginia Tech, UVA, all these guys have brought in so many European players. It seems like a lot of the ACC also, they're all over rosters. Is that affecting, recruiting in terms of, some of our local area kids not getting as many opportunities on college rosters? For sure.
I would say, the way we've done it, and I'm sure it's probably the way most schools have done it, even if they don't frame it this way, but we would, if we had 4 scholarships available for a coming season, we might recruit, 8 guys on an A list, 12 on our B list, and then a list of really guys to keep an eye on of 25.
Yeah.
And now we only have an A list, and if we don't get the guys on the A list, then we turn our attention to the portal, or, maybe we watch some guys in high school and we look overseas for guys. The pressure now for players to be able to come in and contribute, not just be on the team or not be a project, but to contribute and help you win is just so critical. And so European players, often are a year or two older. They've often played for a professional team or for a professional club. And so they've had more exposure against older players, and that they're either a little bit ahead, or they certainly have the experience that puts them ahead of a high school player. So yes, I think the number of high school players that get signed nowadays is far lower. And it makes it that much more difficult and challenging for those guys to catch the eye of recruiters, especially at our level and above. And it has just drastically and radically changed. So, I hope that we get some, just guidelines, whether that's specifically rules or collectively bargained agreements. I hope we get some guidelines, because right now it's difficult to know, are guys going to be eligible for 5 years? Yep. Is the money going to be this high always? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? And you don't know those answers, as the coach of the team, or the most important people of coach, players, administrators don't even know those answers. So hopefully we get some of that clarified soon. Then at least it feels like more we're on the same level ground for competing. If we don't have those, then it just feels very, very different, and it's hard to figure out exactly what people are allowed to do or can do or willing to do, and if there are any rules or guidelines that say, hey, this is the level playing field that we're creating.
Yeah, and to kind of talk about, these guys right out of high school, you've recruited a couple of guys right out of the region. To preview the season a little bit, what's kind of some guys you're excited about this season? You brought in a lot of talent that contributed a lot for previous teams last year to replace some of, Neskovich and Hunt, and they gave you so much production last year, and now fresh season. Yeah. What's kind of the your thought process going into week 1?
Yeah, so we recruited 4 players, or signed 4 players from the transfer portal, and those guys are 2 guys with 1 year of eligibility, 2 grad students, and then 2 guys with 2 years of eligibility. So Will Johnston came from Loyola Marymount. He's a point guard, had really, really great 2 seasons at Loyola Marymount. A great shooter, great assist to turnover ratio, really has an understanding of how to play college basketball. We're excited about Will and think that he'll be a great player for us. David Thomas, who was at DePaul, from Atlanta, very good player, strong, quick, tough, hard-nosed, can shoot the ball. So we're excited about him. He has 2 years left. Jaden Daughtry, who's from the Richmond area originally.
Elsie Bird, I think, right?
Yeah, exactly. Did a year at he did a year at Benedictine, then at Hargrave. So he comes to us from Indiana State. Really has a chance to be a special player, unique player for Richmond. That he's really strong. He's about of an undersized 4-man, as they say, 6'5", but strong rebounder. Averaged 13 points in 19 minutes at Indiana State. So we feel like he'll be a really good producer. And then AJ Lopez, who was an all-conference player at Maine last year, who played in the Robins Center when we hosted Maine last year. Very, very good player. And so that's a difference. Those guys coming in and being able to play right away, they all have accolades in college, legitimate statistics in college, seasons worth of statistics in college. And you compare that to someone coming in as a freshman, even if the freshman's more talented or taller, quicker, longer, it's just such a different level of competition now that they're facing. And so we really love the freshmen that we brought in. And we also redshirted our 2 freshmen from last year, Bryson McLaughlin and Jalen Robinson, who we have really high hopes for and expectations. They're 2 very athletic, talented players. So we like that model maybe of redshirting guys. I think that might come more into vogue. And we think Richmond as a place where guys will want to stay, or we can compete to keep guys for their 4-year career. That redshirting guys is something that could be really valuable for us and really valuable for the player for sure.
And spending as much time as you have at Richmond, I'm sure you've developed some traditions with the team and different things that you guys do that maybe is different from some other university. Is there can you share any traditions, special things that you like to do that you've kind of developed over the years?
Yeah, we have we've had a lot of good things. Talk about one specifically. I think the best thing about having a long tenure is the guys who come back to school. And so Nathan Kehoe, who's a great player for us, was in town recently. Grant Golden comes back and spends the offseason in Richmond. Jacob Gilliard is here a couple of times. Kevin Anderson was up last year. We had 3 former players named head coach at Division I programs this year, and we were able to get to their press conferences and celebrate that accomplishment with them. So I really feel like that's the overriding most important thing or most valuable thing about having a long tenure, that there's a connection between or among 50, 60, 70 guys who have played here. One thing we do is we have a super generous alumnus who's a Spider who lives in New York and is in the clothing industry, and he treats the guys every year to suits.
Oh, nice.
So we take the guys over to Alton Lane, which is a great shop here, a local, started locally, but it's a national chain now, and they custom suits, and we have the guys go in and get measured and choose their suit and a shirt or 2 and a tie, and always very nice night. Our guys are always best dressed at banquets and formals at the end of the year because they have these nice suits. And, that used to be a really big deal. Now it's kind of a big deal, but it's something that Dan, who is the generous alumnus, wants us to do, and we're super grateful. And it's something that we can, again, if you spend 4 years here, that's 4 custom suits, and
I can use those.
Yeah, for sure.
Roster spot.
For sure. So that's always a nice night. We spend it with the guys. We have some food, and they close the store for us and take everybody's measurements, and so that's something nice that we've done for a long time.
60, 70, 80 guys come through the program, like you mentioned. If you were to create, a basketball player, somebody's mind, somebody's speed, somebody's shooting, could you Frankenstein us a Richmond basketball player through the 21 years?
Yeah, I would say probably Jacob Gilliard's mind and sense for the game, just really elite. TJ Klein would be up there in sense, but I would also say his competitiveness He was really, really driven and, almost a little off in terms of his level of competitiveness. Kevin Anderson's composure
Okay.
was just something that was just incredible to see. I would say, fire would be David Gonzalez, who really was a great player in the early years that we had. And then I would just, because it's such an important part, Darius Garrett's shot blocking.
Okay.
Darius blocked 14 shots in one game against UMass, and that's 14 shots that don't get to the basket. You have a pretty good chance to win that game. So
No
I would
kidding.
probably take that as a specialty.
What about shooting?
Shooting, yeah, I would say, there'd be some, Kendall Anthony and
Okay.
Nick Sherrod would probably be the two that come to mind the most. Nick had just a picture perfect shot. It just always felt like the ball was just floating and was just even hit the net softly. Kendall Anthony was just an amazing shooter. And Jordan King probably.
Okay.
Jordan King probably could make, he could make the highest percentage of fairly difficult shots off the dribble, shots under duress. He could make a very high percentage of those, which was really fun to watch.
Yeah, a lot of talented players absolutely have come through in all those years, and also in all those years, have you developed any superstitions? Do you have any traditions, or I don't know if tradition is the right word, but something you do before every game?
Yes.
That keeps you make sure you're going to have a good game day.
Yeah. How long do we have?
Is it that many?
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a little bit of. I remember reading about Wade Boggs, who would eat. I think he would eat chicken every game the night before every game.
And then have 33 beers on the plane home.
Right.
Something like that.
Exactly. And he would go out and do his sprints at the same time and stretching and BP, and he called it mind relaxers. I think I have so many now. I think it's beyond mind relaxers to ticks. So yeah, it's too many, and I wish I could get myself out of it, to be honest with you. But some are such strong habits now that
Really?
I don't even think about. But a lot are something that I'm always aware of, and in a way, maybe sometimes it's good because it takes your mind away from a particular play or a call or something like that, because you need to do this thing for the next shot to go in. But yeah, I wish I didn't have those, but unfortunately, it's pretty well ingrained now.
Do you still get anxious or nervous before a game, or is it just maybe the first game of the year or a big game?
I would say, I get anxious. I think that, Bob Black will often ask me, are you concerned about this for tonight? Are you concerned about, that? And I always say, I'm concerned about the jump ball and everything after, because, basketball is such a fluid sport, and, a game plan in basketball is necessary and extremely valuable. But the game's just so fluid that sometimes it's hard for that particular plan or that emphasis to always show up. And if the other team has a tremendous ball handler, a guy who's shooting incredibly well, certainly you have the understanding, well, we need to get the ball out of his hands. That's a little harder in basketball than you might want it to be. And so it's so fluid that you want that your plan was good and accurate and helps the guys, but you also hope that it can show up. And because the game is up and down and fluid, and a foul trouble or a call goes against you that makes you have somebody on the bench that's a integral part of the plan, boy, that's a little bit difficult. So I think there's lots of things to be anxious about, and which is why I think you always hear coaches say, next play, and you take it one game at a time and one possession, because you can't control anything beyond that. You want to be able to, but in reality, you can't.
All right, last question for you, and this is something that I think just bothers me as a sports fan. There's such great competition and rivalry between Richmond and VCU, George Mason. How come there aren't as many in-state matchups, like Richmond getting the opportunity to play UVA, Virginia Tech every year, Longwood, Liberty, JMU? There's such great universities here in the state, but we hardly ever see them face off against each other, quite frankly.
Yeah, that's true. Scheduling is another thing that has changed dramatically, and I think that I feel like in all of these decisions, conference realignment, scheduling issues, bowl games, playoffs, NCAA tournament, tradition has just lost on everyone, you know, and obviously the chance to make more money has won on everyone. And so I feel like for the high majors, they, when I see their schedules come out, they'll play one another, and they'll play 6 or 7 games at home against teams they have a very reasonable shot to win, because that impacts their efficiencies, offensive and defensive efficiencies. And if they win a game by 40 points, naturally their efficiencies are going to be very high. But yeah, tradition has not been able to win. And, I know Governor Youngkin, who's an extremely popular figure and somebody who might be the president one day, I think we all tried to put a game together, a doubleheader together, weren't able to do that. So, and he's, the most powerful man in the state. So it's just changed dramatically. And it's something that I hope they, what's difficult about college basketball is on Selection Sunday, if you have a great record and you don't make it, then they start to look, well, they didn't play enough, high quality teams. But there's no rules on who everybody has to play at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl. Well, they can't skip playing the Cowboys or the 49ers this year, or choose who they play for the first month and a half. So it's a different model, but it's, as some of it's getting more towards a professional model, some is staying with the older model, or where everybody schedules their own games. And maybe that's something that can be looked at, and hopefully tradition will win one of these battles.
I know that a lot of folks would like to see that. But Coach Mooney, thanks so much for stopping by the studio. The season's right around the corner. I know folks are really excited about it, and we're excited to be at the games.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's been great. Thanks. And thanks for watching. Be sure to tune in next week for the next episode of 8 Sports Nightcap. Good night, everybody.